Are you ready?
This is From the Backline, a soccer podcast from Vancouver, covering the game at home and abroad. Here are your hosts, Mark Daly and Jorge Mendoza.
Hey everybody, welcome back to From the Backline. Mark and Jorge here. It is Friday night. It's late night. It's like after hours, Jorge. You know, with the late show being canceled, you know, it's just you and me, buddy. And I've already forgotten what episode number this is, so we're already off to a really poor start. But you know, maybe we should just try and cruise right on past this. This is where you slide in and say, "Bro, it was episode." Or you hold up fingers or something like that. No, not that finger. That's only one, dude. That was offensive. Okay, point taken. I got to pay attention in pre-production here. But how are you doing, buddy?
It's one of these times 294.
What is 294? That's a lot of fingers. Anyways, yeah, it's good to see you, my friend. It's been you were just telling me you had like a couple extra days off this week, and it's a long weekend. You look a little bit like you combed your hair, which is usually, you know, at this time of night. You know, I want to criticize, but doesn't usually look as sharp as it does earlier in the day. But you look well turned out. It looks like you're ready to do this, even though it's late on a Friday night.
You see, this is the beauty of it. You just said really nice things about me. Yes, I did comb my hair. I'm gonna go back to you to say how sad my life is. That it is Friday night. It is 10:25 p.m. and I'm spending my evening chatting with you. That is how far we have fallen.
I totally get that, but I've gotten to this point in my life where I just don't really like leaving my house. So there is like you know, when you're younger, right? You never want to stay in your house. You want to go out, you want to see people, and you want to go and do things. And it's just like it's a joy to go out. And then life kind of like beats you down, and you realize that, you know, the best place is to stay at home because the world is a cold and cruel and heartless place. And that I can't even say that with a straight face. But yeah, you know, it is what it is, my friend. We're middle-aged, we have families, we have mortgages, and that all requires working and jobs and all that fun stuff. And you know, we neither of us come from situations where, you know, I just don't know, dude. Like my parents, like when I was growing up, only my dad worked, like when I was growing up, for the longest time. It's like we can't even conceive of that in our house. It's like we both have to work, and we work at hell of an effing lot, and we still don't have a lot of money, and I just don't understand where it all goes. But you know, so there's that. So part of the reason we do this, Jorge, is just for the fun of it, to get away from the reality and the you know, the challenges of life. And here we are talking about the challenges of life. So I don't know, maybe we should just end it there and come back next week and try at the clean slate. So
Or you hopefully know which episode we're on.
Yeah, well, probably not. Hey, you know, so this is a little bit kind of interesting. So I love playing around with AI. I use it as an efficiency tool for a lot of things that at work. So before we sat down, I picked up my phone and I opened up Google Gemini, and I prompted it to this exact phrase: "Tell me everything about the FTBL podcast." So it comes up with a couple of different sections. And the first one says, "From the Backline, originally kicked off its journey roughly 13 years ago, quickly establishing itself as a staple for soccer fans in the Pacific Northwest. It earned a reputation for blending astute tactical breakdowns with easygoing, authentic banner." So, you know, whoever coined the term AI slop is, you know, completely wrong, because I mean, this is on point so far.
It's dead on.
So now this is where it gets interesting. After building a deep archive of episodes, the show went on a lengthy 6-year hiatus, and the 6-year hiatus is bold-faced, bro. This is cool, leaving a massive gap in local independent soccer media. Yes, wow, that's you know, that's one for us. In March, so we go on to section 2 here, the 2026 resurrection. In March 2026, the silence was finally broken. The show made its highly anticipated return with the episode 287, got the episode right, fittingly titled "Anyway, We're Back." The revival has seamlessly picked up right where things left off, capturing the massive evolution of the Canadian North American soccer landscapes over the last half decade. So it kind of goes on to a couple of different things. We talk about the MLS, we talk about Vancouver FC and the CPL, we talk about the international game. And then the last section, so this is kind of interesting, the vibe. This is the final section. What truly defines From the Backline is the chemistry at the microphones. It balances serious soccer knowledge with classic inside jokes, again on point, a bit of legendary nostalgia like historical matchups against rivals Portland and it says San Jose, so that's wrong because they aren't rivals, though I guess it's pulling from our recent catalog. And the occasional unexpected moment like Jorge breaking into song. Like, I don't remember that. There must have been an episode somewhere back in, episodes 1 to 286. Yeah.
I sang the other day when I sang We Don't Talk About Bruno.
Oh, that's true. You did. And then the final the final paragraph here says, it remains an essential weekly listen for anyone wanting the unfiltered, passionate truth about soccer at home and abroad. So there you go. Google Gemini has us down pat. I thought that was just kind of cool. Yeah. Well, so that's what I was doing while I was waiting in the virtual green room for you to join the call here this evening.
If there's a more evident truth about AI not being a reliable source, this would be it. I just pointed to Exhibit A.
Yeah, I thought it was. I was actually humbled. Apparently Google Gemini is our biggest fan, and which is also a little bit kind of creepy, because when the Terminators hit the ground, they're probably coming to our houses first. So there's probably that to worry about. But I thought
hopefully it's a Pacific Northwest soccer fan. Robotic overlords, and they're like, you two clowns, you're gonna now be our jesters of the kingdom.
Well, that wouldn't be out of place for us. I mean, when I look at the list of things that I like, career options when I went in high school, like 400 years ago, court jester was one of my suggested career paths. So
I'll take court jester for our AI and robotic overlords. I'll take that.
Exactly.
Compared to the options, probably not a bad deal.
Yeah, it's probably not a bad deal at all. Also, talking about bad deals, I guess maybe. I don't know, but so we had the big meeting a couple of days ago with Whitecaps FC, MLS, government representatives from federal, provincial, local, Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh nations, key corporate partners like Pavco, the Vancouver Board of Trade. Things are happening. So the business community in Vancouver circulated a petition, one of several petitions going around there. Dude, I cannot remember a time where so many levels of government and so many people with a stake in any entity, let alone a professional sports team like the Whitecaps, have come together in this way. So who knows? There's been, the Whitecaps. I'll just read it if nobody's heard this yet. It says Vancouver Whitecaps FC and Major League Soccer met with government representatives from Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, as well as corporate partners and other key stakeholders this week as part of ongoing discussions about the club's future in Vancouver. All parties have committed to continuing to work actively towards improving the economics of soccer in Vancouver. We are encouraged by the shared intent. These discussions advance. The next steps will be for Vancouver Whitecaps FC and the stakeholders to formalize proposals that will make the club more attractive for local ownership groups to come forward. So very promising developments. Obviously, it is by no means done and dusted and sorted out, but after all the uncertainty over the past month or so, this has to be seen as a positive development. Obviously, this needs to evolve. Things need to happen now. They need to find a way to stop the financial hemorrhaging and bleeding, stabilize all these different revenue streams, and hopefully this is the first step in the next step. So it's not the beginning of the end, but it might be the end of the beginning. So whatever we've been going through the past month or 6 weeks, and I was thinking about it, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is Did this all start specifically because of David Osted? Was it just good timing? But it feels that when he came, was it about a month or 6 weeks ago, and started circulating that petition, it seems like that was the first moment where things kind of kicked into high drive. And of course, the fans and supporters have been very vocal and really driving awareness about this, very concerning and important issue online, in person, going to the FIFA Congress about 10 days ago as well, over the Vancouver Convention Center. So a lot of people have really stepped up, and not just like the supporters groups in Vancouver, but across the entire, the entire continent, really, from coast to coast, from north to south, and everywhere in between. And I think a lot of people made some really good points. And forgive me, I can't remember exactly who made this comment the first time. It's just like, if MLS could like uproot and move the Vancouver Whitecaps to Vegas at the drop of a hat, they could do it to basically any other team without any respect for the traditions, the culture, the history, and everything like that. And basically, it was kind of, I think a very good statement, and the way that it really kind of laid it out, because that's what it was, that there's no value in these, and this is what I hate about North American sports, is when they call them franchises. We know that's what they are, but we're not talking about a Tim Hortons or a McDonald's or something like that. But essentially that's what they are. And to have that, like a club, uprooted and ripped out of a city and relocated somewhere else. And there are countless examples in all sports. It happens every number of years. It's just always heartbreaking. And honestly, I never thought it would happen in Vancouver. And of course, we have the Grizzlies from 25 years ago, which, honestly ruined, like being a serious NBA fan after that. I was just so upset when the Grizzlies left town, not because they were a great team, but they never really had the opportunity to really establish themselves. I mean, they really only moved out after a handful of years, and I thought that it would never happen again. So, I mean, that's probably me being, a little bit naive, honestly, to be truthful. But I'm encouraged, but I want to make, I want to be reassured by everybody involved that this is just not, lip service, and that, just putting out a positive statement just for the sake of putting out a positive statement. But I don't think so, because I think if there was any BS to it, I mean, there's all these different, well, not that you can trust, different levels of government, but there are so many different groups involved in this, that if there was something insincere about this process, I feel that in the couple of days since the big meeting on Wednesday afternoon, I feel that we would have heard something from now. But still, we need to see some concrete developments. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think that you nail it in the head, right? I think that just all these different parties from both the public and the private sector coming together to discuss the situation, I think that it has to be seen as a positive, right? I don't think that all of these people from all these groups would come together just to say, hey, by the way, the team is leaving, right? So again, without knowing what was said in the room and what happened in that meeting, you would have to think that it is because of like meaningful progress is being done, or at least maybe that's the hopeful thinking. But it makes sense. Like, I don't see why they would all come together just to be told like bad news, in the sense that like, the team is relocating. So it's definitely encouraging. So I think that it is definitely good news. The other thing that I wanted to say is you talked about like the support from across North America that this movement has had, and I think that that's probably the thing that I would take away. Right, like I've seen videos online of the different demonstrations and of support that other support teams and other fans from other markets and other cities in MLS have shown. Right, I have seen things in Portland and San Jose and LA and Columbus and from all like across different cities in the league, and I think that is heartwarming. Right, I think that like the fact that all these teams are showing support for the Whitecaps, I think that it is it is definitely one of the most positive things out of this whole saga. I remember when the whole Columbus Crew moving to Austin was happening. I remember the Vancouver fans also showing support for the Crew, which at the end it worked out for them because yes, they did relocate that that club to Austin, but then another a rebirth kind of a thing happened in Columbus, and so like no harm, no foul kind of situation. But I think that is cool to see all this happening across the league. The other thing that I wanted to say is that as foreign of a concept of relocating a club is to soccer fans from people who follow Europe and stuff like that, to me, as a Mexican who have seen football for 40 years, is not it's not that weird. Like in Mexico, for better or worse, it happens all the time. It happened just a few weeks ago. There was a team in Mazatlan, and they were in the league, I don't know, 8 years or so, who were bought from a different city and relocated to Mazatlan, and they played there for 8 years. The owner decided to sell the club, and then a historic club, Atlante in Mexico, who had been in second division for 12 years, I believe, decided to buy that club and basically reinstate Atlante into the first division, because as we know, kind of like MLS, Liga MX has no relegation and promotion and relegation anymore. So actually, this kind of like circles back to the Whitecaps, because the Whitecaps were going to face Mazatlan in the Leagues Cup coming up in August here at BC Place, and now their rival has been updated, and now they're going to be facing Atlante FC because of all this movement. So
shenanigans. I think we can like that firmly goes in the category of shenanigans. Yeah, isn't that kind of funny? Like, honestly, I didn't realize that, but where obviously, like my background, half Dutch, half British, and clubs over there are very much part of communities. So it just is it is something that I've never completely been able to wrap my mind around, even though I've lived most of my life in Canada, is just that, and that's why I was saying just now, like, I hate the word franchise, because I feel like it devalues the meaning and the connection and the relationship that the team or the club has with the community and with its fans. I feel that, franchise just makes it feel like some cheap corporate entity that, can very much be, picked up and dropped in, like some place like Vegas or Albuquerque or whatever, it just, and that's why I hate it, because it just, it kind of brings to the forefront what I think we all really know what is true, is that they're business entities. And if business isn't good in one city, you can just basically pack it up and throw it in the back of a U-Haul and tear out of the city in the small hours of the night and open up shop somewhere else the next morning, which is, it's not cool, but it is what it is. Anyways, yeah, I mean, we'll see where it goes, but for the moment, at least there seems to be some hope. And then, that always kind of like brings me back to that, that classic moment at the end of the Shawshank Redemption between Red and Andy, and how they talk about hope is a good thing, perhaps the best of things. Great movie, by the way. Go and see it, because
go and see it. Like, what do you think? It's been like, this movie is like 30 years old. Do you think that it's been shown in the movie theaters? Is that what you think it's happening at the movie theaters now?
It should be, because it's a classic, and we got one more match with the Whitecaps, and then we've got no MLS for a time. And isn't it weird? So I was at YVR this week. I was out of town for a couple of days, came back, and when I was walking down to my gate on Monday morning, they already have a little pavilion set up for or with like a FIFA booth with everything in there. I did want to go in there because it's something that'll be like $94 for a T-shirt and $115 for a scarf or something like that. But anyways, it was kind of exciting because World Cup is almost like literally here. So I mean, a couple more matches in MLS, and then I mean it's frightening to think we're in the middle of May right now, and that means excitingly, on the other hand, the World Cup is literally right around the corner, which is very cool.
It's 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks from now.
Yeah. So we'll get there eventually, and I guess we're going to be switching focus obviously for a while for the biggest World Cup in history, which I think is going to go about like 19 months before it's over. But
it has to.
It has to. With how many?
I think every country in the world made it in. So
pretty much,
it's
right?
It's gonna take a little while. But
indeed.
Hey, let's talk about what is happening on the pitch with the Vancouver Whitecaps, because Mark,
we can do that.
It's a good time to be a Vancouver Whitecaps fan, because they are simply and without a question the best team in this league. We're in match day 13, which is just over a third of the season gone.
Isn't that crazy?
I don't think, but that's the thing. I don't think that at any point we have been this deep in the season with the team this high on the table, let alone being the best team in the league. Like just this close to high of the season, and it is impressive what is going on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you say, Whitecaps now top of the league. They are, after 12 matches, 9-1-2. Only loss of the season came several weeks ago at home to the San Jose Earthquakes. So we'll talk quickly about the match down in San Jose last weekend. End up in a 1-1 draw. Go midweek down to Frisco, Texas. And bro, I got to ask you a question. In the work that you've done with MLS over the last number of years, have you ever been to Frisco? Because I swear that stadium, they've been building that one stand now. Like I swear this is like some sort of like medieval cathedral that takes like literally a generation to build, because I feel like that one stand has been under construction literally for like 9 years or something. It seems like a long time.
It's funny you mentioned that, because yes, I have been to Frisco. I've been to Toyota Stadium. First of all, way too far from Dallas. There's nothing going on. But also, fun fact, worst food in the league. I'm not talking about like the stand, like the concessions in the stadium. I'm talking about like the food that as crew and stuff we get. By far the worst one, Frisco, Texas. Awful. But I mean, a couple things. One is, you talk about the game in San Jose. I think that the result didn't necessarily portray what happened on the pitch. I think that the Whitecaps deserve better for that game. But I'm more interested. I want to hear your thoughts on the San Jose match, but I have a couple of other thoughts on the Dallas game midweek. But first, like, what are your thoughts overall on San Jose?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there were some opportunities for them. Again, it was another match they played without Thomas Mueller, and I felt that, compared the week before when they played the LA Galaxy, when he was like basically a last-minute scratch, that obviously that affected the dynamic of the side, and I felt that it wasn't. I don't think it was completely solved for the San Jose match, but I don't feel like I felt that they were in danger of losing that one. I felt like a week before at the Galaxy, I felt there was a couple of moments that might have gotten away from them. And I feel that the result against the Earthquakes, 1-1 wasn't a true representation, and just one bounce either way, and they could have I don't think the Whitecaps would have run away with this in like 4-1 or something like that. But I definitely could have seen like an outcome where they might have won this one by a single goal or something like that. And at the end of the day, they didn't, but I wasn't worried about them dropping the points. So I felt that was positive. And then, I guess we're sort of going to bounce back and forth between these two matches. And again, even though FC Dallas on Wednesday night. They hit the post very early on in the match. They get on the score sheet early. There's the penalty. All this stuff going on. Even then, I still was not worried that it wasn't going to work out for the Whitecaps. And yeah, okay, you want to jump in, so go ahead.
I do, because this is one of the points I wanted to make. It's funny that we actually independently came to the same conclusion. My main takeaway from the game against Dallas is that there seems to be a confidence in this team that is percolating down for us as fans. Like you said, like they were down early away in Dallas. And I think that in years past, both the team and as a result, us as well, that's one for in the loss column. They went down early. There's no way they're going to tie them up. But there is a sense that this team exudes that is almost like an aura thing. They went down. They didn't panic. They just kept going about their business, and they slowly start to put on pressure, and it just feels like it's a matter of time. It's not happening. It's not a thing of when. So no, it's not going to be if, but when. Mm-hmm. When are they going to tie this game? And I think that sort of like confidence that they're exuding on the pitch it's passing through for us as fans, because I was watching the game and they went down 1-0. And I did not get that feeling. I don't get a feeling of like doom, of like, well, that's that game. No, it was like, no. And then you can start seeing them, and they get more dangerous, and instead of getting more chances, and you're like, yeah, this is going to happen. And it does. And it did. And it happened again. I mean, they went 2-1 up, and then Dallas ties the game. And once again, you're like, yeah, no, they're gonna get 3 points, and you just kind of like just know, like it's just like I wonder if this is what being a fan of like Bayern Munich or Barcelona or Madrid feels like. Or like Man City, something like that.
Bro, that's too far. Don't bring up City.
I went there because I know that you're a United fan. But you don't get that feeling with United right now. But you kind of get it with City. We're like, you're like, sure, they're gonna find a way.
Yeah, I agree,
and they are. So that was my first takeaway. That I was like, it's not a big deal. They're gonna get it done. Which again, unprecedented. For this for this team, to be honest,
100%.
The other thing is, well, before I go, the penalty, 100% not a penalty. It was, yes, there's a foul, but it's outside of the box. It was shocking to me that was called a penalty. Shocking.
Yeah, no, 100%, because it was an awkward moment, right? There was no malice or ill intent. It was a foul, but I mean, look where the foul took place. So, I mean, that was a fortunate call for them. I mean, 100% it was. But to your point, in years gone by, I mean, like the confidence of the squad, and number one, I mean, the talent in this squad from side to side and up and down the pitch and off the bench is better than it's ever have been. So, I mean, I think that's part of what builds the confidence, because that saying, game recognizes game, right? So you can almost, and we had the discussion the other week, is that, Sorensen still doesn't have, arguably his best squad available, on a match day. But, having said that, when things go a little bit sideways, and in years gone by, the confidence just wasn't there, because, yeah, they had some talent, but, the squad wasn't as deep. Mentally, they weren't as strong, in all those different things that go into it, and it was virtually impossible for them to come back. And I was thinking about it, and I think obviously we both were, because as you said, we independently came to the same conclusion that after the penalty kick, they're back on even terms only about 10 or 12 minutes afterwards. There's not a big difference. And then as soon as they tied it up and were even at one apiece, the Whitecaps all of a sudden several minutes after that are now in front because of the own goal by FC Dallas. And it was interesting because the way that they're putting those balls, and I can't remember if it came from Sabi or maybe from Ocampo, but those balls that go in behind like the back line, they are just difficult to deal with because I was watching again a little bit earlier just to refresh my memory because I only got to watch the highlights the other night on my way home. But if Urgohide doesn't put his foot on the ball, Brian White is right there. I mean, the chances are that ball was going in off of the foot of one of those two players. And there was lots of incidents like that. So again, they, very shortly after the restart in the second half, it's even, but even then, I wasn't concerned. I felt that there were still more goals to have. And then when Caicedo came on at the end of the game, obviously Dallas is pressing then to try and find an equalizer late, but they could have easily scored one or two more goals afterwards. So I feel that the scoreline could have been more, but also Dallas did hit the post in the first half. They did have that one free kick that, had that gone in, that would have been a highlight reel kick because, I mean, that curled so nicely from Kappas and then just kind of went over the bar. So, this could have easily been a match that finished 4-3 or 5-4, had all, both sides finished all their chances. But, to sum it up, I still think the Whitecaps would have won regardless.
Yeah. I want to say a couple points. One is that we're forgetting about the game saving save that Takaoka had once the Whitecaps went 3-2. So that could have been like a 3-3. At the same time, Dallas also cleared one off the line. So as you say, like I think that at the end of the day, like it's all in the wash, and I think that it was a fair result. I do want to say, personally, I feel that FC Dallas goalkeeper Michael Collodi could have done better on both the Berhalter goals.
Yes, he could have.
He both got a piece of them on both of them, and they still went in. Trying not to take away from Sebastian Berhalter, but also I think Collodi was not at his best on the night, which is obviously the Whitecaps will take that as a whole.
But it doesn't matter how they get in the back of the net. They just need to go back in the net. And if you're,
they all count.
He has a bad night. Yeah, exactly.
They all count.
They all count.
So who cares? Now, the other point that I wanted to make about the FC Dallas game is that a couple of episodes ago, we talked about whether or not the Whitecaps had a dependency on Muller, right? On Thomas Muller. Look at the last 3 matches. I think that question has been answered emphatically to say, I don't think so. I think they can do equally as well, or they can get results whether Muller is on the pitch or not. But let me shift the question.
Okay.
To maybe we were looking at the wrong player. Maybe the Whitecaps do not have a dependency on Thomas Muller, but let me tell you, the thought of this team playing without Sebastian Berhalter, that gives me nightmares. So I think Berhalter is by far, and I mean by far, the most important footballer that this team has today.
Well, yeah, 100%. I mean, if you're going to go back a couple episodes, can we go back a couple of episodes before that? Because I think one of the very first shows we did when we booted the show at the start of the season was that I think both of us said at the point that if there's one person we want to see on the pitch every single match is Sebastian Berhalter. And again, it doesn't matter if Collodi mishandles those balls. The first one, I can see why he mishandled it because there was no spin on it. And when there's no spin spin on the ball. It has very weird dynamics and easy to misplay. The second one, obviously he could have done a little bit better, but hey, doesn't matter. It went in the back of the net. He gets the brace. Whitecaps get the 3 points. Now they go to Houston to finish off this first part of the season before the World Cup break. And it's a good place to be in. And I'm going to, first of all, 100% agree with your points about Sebastian Berhalter. I'm not quite there when it comes to Thomas Müller, though, because I feel like obviously at LA Galaxy 2 weeks ago, with him being a late scratch because, of the illness he had, that obviously affected the side. At San Jose, maybe not quite so much, but I think at FC Dallas on Wednesday night, I think by that time they completely, had started to figure it out and were, learned how to work around that. Having said that, if I have the option to put Thomas Müller on the pitch on any given day, I'm putting Thomas Müller onto the pitch. So he did get some minutes at the end, but, not really a lot. He came on like in the 83rd or the 84th minute, something like that. So really just a, handful of minutes. And, it was kind of ridiculous too, because I think wasn't there like 8 minutes of like stoppage time at the end of the first half and like 74 at the end of the second half. I mean, there was a substantial amount of stoppage time that was added on, but it is what it is. You got to play a full 90 minutes of meaningful football. But yeah, I think that it'll be interesting because you very short pause in between, 3 games in 7 days, and off to Houston to play the Dynamo here in a couple of days, and that'll be interesting because now, if Müller, had an illness, got to regain his fitness because if you get like a bad cold or a flu, once you get better, you're just sucking air sometimes. Even if you're feeling, you've gotten over your illness, your cardio and your lungs and everything take a little bit to get back up to speed. I'll put this question to you now. If you're Jesper Sorensen and you have Thomas Müller available, this weekend, do you put him back into the starting 11, or do you wait and evaluate after 45, or do you give him half an hour at the end of the game, or what is your thoughts on it? Personally, I don't see any urgency to put him in right away, but this is the last match now for a number of weeks, so want to finish strong, right?
I disagree with you. I think that I would go the other way. I think I will give him the start, try to put the pressure up, try to solve solve the match ahead of time, and then if need be, then you have options coming from the bench, right? You have Badwell, or hey, you have Cabrera, who came on. We talked about Cabrera again a couple of episodes ago. He came on. He had the assist for the third goal. So you have options. You have Caicedo that you can maybe push in there. But I think that if he's good to go, you give him the start and trying to solve the match first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that sounds fair. That sounds fair.
So before the game against LA, before the road trip started, we talked about what a good road trip would look like for this team, and I mentioned that I would give the Whitecaps a draw against LA, a loss against San Jose and Chicago, and a win for all the other teams that they're going to face, including obviously Houston, and includes Minnesota, and includes St. Louis, and I can't remember off the top of my head who else. So far, they drew against LA, they drew against San Jose, and they beat Dallas. So based on what I said, they're actually a point ahead because they didn't lose against San Jose. So far, so good. They have done well. Now, looking into Houston, this is going to be an interesting match, I feel. Not because Houston is doing incredibly well. They're sitting 8th in the table. They have 6 wins and 6 losses. They have 17 goals for, 22 against, and -5. I'll tell you why I'm interested to see this game. And that has a name, and that's Hector Herrera. So For those of you who are not super familiar with Héctor Herrera it's a Mexican player who went to play in Europe. Was one of the better players who have been in Europe in the last decade or so. He played for Porto. He played for Atletico Madrid. He played the Champions League. He's played, I believe, 3 World Cups with Mexico. He's a gold medalist from London 2012 with Mexico. One of the better players in Europe for the last in the last few years. In 2022, he signed with Houston, coming from Atletico Madrid. So he came in the summer of 2022. He played the rest of 2022, 2023, 2024, played 2.5 seasons with the team in what I would say inconsequential seasons. In fairness, I don't think that he was necessarily up to the expectations that they had of him. At the end of the 2024 season, Houston was in the MLS Cup playoffs, and Herrera was sent off in the last game because in a moment of idiocy, really, there was a call that went against him. He turned around. He spat in the direction of the referee. He didn't spat directly to the referee. He spat in the direction of the referee. He got a red card, and then 3 days later, the club decided not to pick up his option, basically parted ways, because they put a statement saying that, like, oh, this is not the values that we as Houston Dynamo we have, and something like that. So Herrera goes back to Mexico. He goes to Liga MX, plays a year, 2025, with Toluca. He gets a back-to-back championship with Toluca. And then quietly, at the beginning of 2026, he resigns with Houston to go back to the Dynamo. And now he's back in there, which I find a little suspect, but, given like the way in which he left the club and what they said at the time, just to kind of like bring it back. Anyway, I'm interested just to see Herrera and that matchup, and see if the Vancouver Whitecaps can continue this run.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard some rumors or some suggestion that he might retire at the end of the year because he's 36, 37, something like that. And like, my take on him is, I mean, I think he's kind of like shifted back to more of like a deep playmaker role. I don't think he's necessarily as mobile, but I think that his passing range and his ball distribution is obviously his strength. Yeah, 100%, right? So, I mean, he's obviously a player that they have to be very, very aware of, because, with that range and like that passing ability, that's a threat for the Whitecaps, because, I think you made a good point, because when we talked about, like what a successful road trip would look like, I think that, I'm really very pleased that so far these 4 matches on the road, 2 wins and 2 draws, they remain among obviously the hottest teams in MLS, because San Jose stumbled. I mean, they lost at Seattle the other night 3-2 playing the Sounders, so that's why they've switched on the top. So this is good. And if you look at, just looking here at the form guide for Houston, so Houston has won 3 out of their last 5 matches, and they're coming off a loss last week, so or in their last match. So they're kind of like a top kind of well, I guess they're not quite in the top half, or top third, but definitely sort of just in the top half of the Western Conference. But I feel like this could be a bit of a tricky, difficult game. It just, I think it's got a couple of things that they need to be very careful of going into this one.
But, anytime Ben Olsen is a coach, I think that he's a consistent coach that can make teams play good football. So there's always a possibility that they can get a result against you. Again, like, they're 6 wins, 6 losses, so they're like that. It can go either way, clearly, with them, and hopefully the Whitecaps are able to solve that and get another result as they head out into a long break, which hopefully will help getting healthier and getting players like Veselinovic back into full health and getting some good rhythm, and still kind of waiting to see what Ryan Gold status is. So I think that hopefully the break is not a negative that sort of like breaks the momentum that they have, but instead they use it to sort of like regroup and face what's going to be what is the 2/3 of the season that are gonna be left and in a healthy squad and get it going.
Isn't that kind of like a funny thought, right? Because, typically just because of the way that the MLS season runs, that, the World Cup and the Euros and other competitions like that are always going to typically fall at a time of the year where it's going to be a little bit inconvenient because it is when the season is already in progress. So I feel like it has that possibility. I was just kind of thinking to myself, it's kind of interesting because the last World Cup in Qatar was obviously in December to get it away from the heat of like the Middle Eastern summer, right? And playing it in December, which obviously didn't affect MLS at that time, but it affected all the all the other big leagues like the European leagues and stuff like that. So a bit of an interesting one, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's why I think it's important for them to get a good result out of Houston this weekend. I mean, ideally, I would love to see them obviously walk away with the 3 points. I mean, it's interesting because of like, Ben Olsen. I mean, he likes to play a 4-3-3 and they shift into 4-2-3-1 in defense. And, I was just looking at some stats. They've got the third best record in the Western Conference for goals conceded. So they've conceded 12. So they're only behind Vancouver and San Jose. So, I mean, they're not really a side that concede a lot of goals. So, I mean, the Whitecaps are going to have to maximize the opportunities that they get. So, that's, put a check mark or another point in the column for you for saying, start Thomas Spuler if he's 100% healthy and ready to go, because, this is an important one. You certainly want to go into, an extended break, like they're going to on a high note. And, despite all the turbulence off the pitch over the last couple of months, I mean, on the pitch, I mean, there's only been that one little bobble against the San Jose Earthquakes, and that wasn't really like a horrible match. I mean, sure, if you kind of go back and look at it, they looked a little bit kind of out of sync in that first half, but it wasn't like it was a horrible game that they were completely outplayed. I mean, it wasn't like anything like that at all. I mean, it was just one of those nights, and you're going to have nights like that once in a while. But it's just I think it's important, when you're on the road for as long as you are, and I mean they're on the road for a good reason because like BC places hosting the World Cup, but still, the downside to that is you're out of your own building. You're not playing in front of your own fans. You're not sleeping in your own bed. You're on the road for, an extended period of time. And, any points you can get are good points. But I think mentally for the sides, it would be a good thing. I just think for morale, just to get a W, put it in your back pocket, go into the World Cup break. And then, at least on the other side, everybody's dealing with the same thing, right? Everybody's dealing with the extended layoff before things pick up, down the road here, right?
Yeah. So one more, and then we can focus on how Mexico is going to win the World Cup, because that's what's going to happen, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a fun thing because pretty soon we're going to put away all our club gear and then go into World Cup mode, and it's going to be an exciting time. I still haven't, honestly, Jorge, I haven't really wrapped my head around it. It was that first kind of realization when I was at YVR earlier in the week and saw that booth is like, oh yeah, that's actually happening here. It's just like it still hasn't really sunk in. And, we're talking about it constantly because every week we're talking about how the Whitecaps are spending another week on the road and, they're tearing up BC Place and then the scandalous, removal of the BC Sports Hall of Fame out of BC Place for the World Cup without compensation, which honestly is a disgrace to kick them out the way that they have been. It just isn't right. But, anyways, at least, I don't know, at least, but yeah, it is a bit surreal because I think as kids always growing up, we always wanted to see like, oh, it'd be great one day if Canada could host the World Cup, but those were always dreams. So to see it actually happening in our lifetime, I think is actually very cool.
Yeah. I mean, and not only that, like we have been able to see two of them. Right? Like you and I went to several matches in 2015 when the Women's World Cup was here.
Yes, so exactly. Yeah,
in that sense, I think that we're incredibly lucky. Obviously, I would love it if we were able to go to a match here, but like I don't think things are looking great on that front. But just knowing that is happening in our backyard, and hopefully, being able to go to one of the fan fests or something like that, I would love it. That maybe to go and take my Matthias and stuff to one of the matches down there, and just kind of like get a sense of what it's like, and I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it will be a real experience. I mean, it's too bad that, say, Holland or Mexico isn't going to play in Vancouver, but, c'est la vie, But of course, Canada's playing here, and we are Canadians, so it's just it's a bit weird because like always cheer for Canada, but now it's the World Cup and the World Cup's here, and I always grew up cheering for Holland, and now it's the World Cup, and I've got this weird sort of conflict going on because I usually cheer for both, but now you can't really cheer for both. Anyways, I'll have to go and sit in a quiet corner and think very hard about the choices I've made in my life.
I mean, realistically, the only tough spot is if Canada, for whatever reason, plays Holland at some point. Then you're going to be in a pickle.
Yeah, that's true. But then, Canada should prevail because Holland always finds a way to disappoint at the World Cup. So I'm just waiting for that moment. Yeah,
this is true. This is
cool. Awesome,
right,
dude. Well, that's great. This was good. I'm glad we sat down and did this, and I guess we're gonna shift focus. We're gonna pivot, and then we're gonna have to get brand new title music and an opener and everything, or just pretend that kind of do the Jedi mind trick or something, and just use the existing one and just kind of pivot into World Cup. These are all workable issues.
Are you kidding me? We have Don Andrews, the voice.
I know
of the Vancouver Whitecaps at BC Place, to do our intro. We're not gonna move away from that at any point. Are you kidding me? He's a legend.
I was hoping you could maybe convince him to do a special World Cup one, but maybe that's pushing our luck.
He's an incredibly nice man.
He is,
and he was very kind in allowing his talent to be the intro voice of our podcast of this couple of clowns that we established at the beginning of the show.
And does he not have the best voice like in the entire world? I mean, did he
He's
not?
Great.
Yeah, he's absolutely fantastic. Anyways, let's park it there. Thanks everybody for checking in, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon. Enjoy the match this weekend. Enjoy the long weekend. Hopefully the weather gets a little bit better. I swear to God that it's going to snow outside. That's what it feels like. But hopefully before the end of the weekend, I can actually go outside and barbecue without turning into like a big steam cloud and things like that of all the rain. But hope springs eternal. Anyways, everybody have a good one. Take care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.